Hey, welcome back to another OVR weekly shooting drill. You can see this week we have one of our members again, Zach, who's going to kind of take over the instruction on this for me. But, this is a Brown level advanced for rifle shoulder switch hitting. So I'm going to turn it over to Zach to kind of start the process here.
Sure. So now that we're switching shoulders, this is definitely not an ideal situation that you want to be in. But it's important to train. If you've been training it, if it's not something that you're going to train, it's not recommended that you just randomly train this motion. It needs to be deliberate, and you need to get a lot of reps into. So it seems very simple, but switching your rifle between shoulders and vision as well can be very complex. And if you're switching your entire rifle with your whole, oh, how's that going? Sling is very important if you have a sling, how you're wearing your sling. But it adds in a lot of complexities too with how you're switching the rifle between your views. So this is one option with keeping your grip the exact same and then changing your eyesight with how you're viewing your sights. Or you can go and move your entire hands and switch both hands with your rifle, which is a lot more cumbersome. It adds in a lot more opportunities for error, but who knows? Maybe that's how you perform better. But there's two options that we can go through. You'll find out what works best for you, and you're going to find out how to run through both options today.
So other than just being awkward, what are some other benefits or problems with doing the different types of shoulder switching?
Sure. So me being a right-handed shooter, if I have a malfunction, all of my training and practice has been dropping a mag with my right trigger finger. If I have my entirety of my grip and setup switched to my left side now, to be honest, I haven't even trained. I guess I would do that. But this is just one of those things. Running through a malfunction drill, it just adds another layer of complexity that's already complex enough. So why do we want to complicate things that don't need to be complicated and keep our grip the exact same? And I'm right here.
Yeah, so everything is trained on the right hand of, hitting the forward assist, manipulating the safety, reloads, everything's done right-handed. So, if you're not practicing this left-handed, you're going to fumble and, you can be very clumsy and mess that up. And trying to do that in the middle of a fight is not a good move.
Not at all. Not at all.
And what about the sling? You mentioned something about the sling just a second ago. How does that affect how you switch your shoulders?
Sure. So sling placement is extremely critical because if I have a more traditional carry with how I wear my sling, and I try to switch my shoulders, we can see already that I'm going to choke myself out, or I'm not going to be able to switch shoulders at all. Right now, if I bring the sling over my left side and I wear it strictly around my neck, there's a lot of benefits to this. There's some downturns as well. It works differently for everybody, but I'm now able to switch my rifle between shoulders much more easily by just doing a normal neck carry.
Now, there's all kinds of different slings that are out there too. And so this is just like a standard sling you would get really for any rifle. There's 3-point slings that make it a little bit easier to manipulate. There's some that have this has a little elastic here to it. There's some that have more of an elastic. Of course, if you're wearing body gear, body armor of any kind, you can get a single connection for that, which makes it a lot easier. So there are other options, but either way, most important thing is what?
Knowing what you're most comfortable with and how do you execute, how do you perform best.
Practicing with it, just doing it. Yep. And that's how you figure those things out. So, so in regards to switching shoulders, why would you want to switch shoulders in the first place?
If you are clearing a room and you have to be deliberate with how you're approaching a doorway, you may not have the option available to you to pie off a corner with your right shoulder. You may need to have a better angle by using your left side so that if I'm coming around a corner right here, I can't really come around this corner very quickly or easily without exposing myself. But if I have my rifle on my left side and I'm coming around this corner, I can now have barrel on target.
Right, which I see you do that, and you actually switched entirely on that, though.
Right.
So that's where that whole awkwardness of manipulating it and trigger and accuracy.
Definitely.
If you're not practicing this, it's one thing to practice the muscle memory at home and just sit in the living room and just go back and forth, but are you able to accurately shoot with your other eye? And
Not
so that's
really.
why it's important.
Yep,
Yeah.
most definitely. And how many times have I pulled the trigger with my right hand? Tens of thousands of times, and I'm no expert by any means, but it is much more natural, and that's where I've done all my training. So
Yeah.
being able to come around another side and keeping everything how I normally keep it with my rifle, it's a big deal.
Okay, good. So there's different ways you can train switching shoulders. At a standard range, they may or may not allow you to do some of this because you are switching shoulders. But again, my philosophy: ask for forgiveness. So the two main ways you can train this. The first way is just use a standard target and take one or two shots, one shoulder, switch shoulders, take one or two shots, and kind of work on just kind of going back and forth. Whether that's your standard where you just switch shoulders, or if you switch entirely, whatever works for you. But just do 1 to 2 shots, switch shoulders. What we like to do is we use a 3x5 card. You can use a playing card, any number of things, and we set them up on either side so that you actually hit the right target with your right shoulder and the left target with your left shoulder. And we see how many times you can engage each of those cards in about a 10-second, well, not about, in 10 seconds. And then that helps to work on how fast you can engage that and transition. It'll also help you if you're timing it to be able to see which is better for you, speed and accuracy both, on entirely switching the weapon shoulder to shoulder or just moving the weapon itself to shoulder. So, come on into OVR. Let's check it out and see how it does. So we're going to go ahead and run this a few times. We'll go ahead and see how Zach does and take it from there. All right, so let's go over the AAR for Zach for doing this shoulder switch hitting. So the biggest thing we're going to point out is if you look at the overall number of shots and the overall accuracy. So hey, you got both shots, the first shot off about the same on both, 1.17 versus 1.28, so 1/10 of a second difference, not really negligible. And his accuracy actually looks pretty good comparing the two. So he's just as accurate switching shoulders. But the key things that if we want to look at is, how many shots did you get off just switching the shoulder? And how many is that?
That was 9 without moving my hands.
9 shots off in 10 seconds. Now, switching hands, it was how many?
5.
5? Yeah, big difference. And so your splits, you're looking at on the switching everything right around 2 seconds per split. Whereas with the shoulder, where you just switch the shoulder, it's 9/10, 8/10 of a second. These are really good splits for being able to switch, having the same accuracy. So, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. We know the answer on which one's better for you, right?
Right. Most definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So, just like we talked about, the key part here is getting in here and doing this and practicing this to figure this out, because it's one thing that you show up and say, hey, I want to switch shoulders entirely. We have you do both methods, and the evidence is in the pudding, or however they say that. So the black and white doesn't lie that it's clearly faster to switching just shoulders. Definitely. Any last minute comments?
No, I think this is a great baseline. I haven't trained this a lot, but I think it's very clear that keeping my hands where they're at and only switching shoulders alone, everything's more familiar. I'm just using a different eye, which you're keeping both eyes open whenever you're shooting in general, so you should have some training in your left eye. But switching both hands, your entire setup, it's a lot more cumbersome. You increase your margin for error. And I haven't even trained that much for just using the first method with keeping my hands where they are. So,
well, good.
9 shots in 10 seconds with decent accuracy. I'm pretty pleased with that.
Okay, good deal. So, as we always say, last resort for doing this, like clearing a room or anything. But hey, zombies come and attack. Whatever happens, you're prepared for it. So, get on in here to OVR. Let's have you go ahead and practice this and see how you do.